Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf. Roger, request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. And 8 Cloud, 7 November, say again. 7 November, go. I copied a while ago, 1 Charlie transmission that my can use and 8 5, this is 7 November, Charlie. Now 1 Charlie, 7 November, go.
This is 1 Charlie, reference to your last, you're Brandon 158 extra 5 o'clock, 1200 between teams, that's local. Also request 3 units take outbound Nexus to see if we can try to get Whiskey 9 and 8 for Pond, this is the playground.
And this is 7 November, Roger, stand by.
Got that.
Got it? Alright. And all units, this is 7 November Golf, my unit Alpha, Echo, X-ray Alpha Alpha in there.
One Charlie, Alpha Bravo.
Yeah, I never took a dip. I forgot to take a dip.
Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9, Yankee, 7 November Golf, over.
This is Whiskey 9, go.
Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9, Yankee, 7 November Golf, over.
This is Whiskey 9, go.
Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf. Roger, request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. And 8 Cloud, 7 November, say again. 7 November, go.
All right, welcome back to another live stream here. Today's gonna be a little different. We're looking at we're gonna be viewing a podcast from this person called Cameron Haynes. He interviewed the VA secretary. His channel is huge, 533,000 subscribers. His view count, on the other hand, is it's a little slacking on this video. So I wonder if there's anything important that the VA secretary talks about here. It's not something I want to miss. I don't want that view count to kind of lead me astray. But we're going to view it. We're going to talk through it, answer some comments as well. Thank you for joining the stream. LG, what's up? 2 longtime fans here. Next Level Cash, I haven't seen you in a while. Homie got your rating and just forgot about us. Josh, how's it going? Byron Bobby D is one of my favorite names here on YouTube, and thank you very much. I appreciate that. Alan Reese and Scott Lara. Okay, let's go ahead and roll into this, and let's see what comes out of it. A few other people as well. How's it going? USMC Big B. Awesome. All right.
Every step I take, I move my truth. Every time they tell me stop, I use. Every comment, hate that makes my feel. Gather up my energy and boom. I hit them.
I gotta get into like this.
That is a part of my mind I've been blessed with. Giving my blood, so I am relentless.
All right, let's see what's going on. Whoa, Billy, hold on. No reason, Billy. No reason at all, especially you. Billy's one of our Discord gurus there. And is also on a separate team, which I'm going to hold off on this channel. But thank you very much, Billy. No reason to do that at all, but I definitely appreciate it. And thank you for being a member. And I'm pretty sure those are random. All right.
Owens, and let me get this right. So it's Secretary of Veterans Affairs.
That's correct.
That's it.
That's
Okay. It's well, it's an honor. It's amazing that you're sitting here with.
I'm not gonna bash. Okay, I'm not gonna bash this whole episode. I do think it's weird. I don't know if that was like scripted or not, but it's the Secretary of Veteran Affairs. What do you mean? How are you gonna whatever?
With me, I mean, we've been corresponding for years. It seems
Yeah, it has
like,
been.
and now to meet you today and just welcome you to your new role and hear what that's like is a big honor.
Okay, Cam, it's great to be here, and we have been over the years watching a lot of things, connecting. You had a big impact on me. I'll just be honest with you. Years ago, when I was in Congress and we were going through a lot of stuff, and it was a time in which when you let life get to you, and then you don't to keep you physically up, you don't get stuff to and run across you through a friend and started watching. That's how we actually connect. When I'm still in the Air Force, and I remember one Saturday I was at the drill and I actually had messaged you or something. We actually started talking, and then just sort of since then watched the kids grow up and got my first bow kill and others. So just all because of that. So
oh man, that's amazing. So, yeah, I do remember going down. Tanner was at Fort Benning down there, and I don't know. It seems like one time I was having trouble getting. I don't know if it was a security thing. Now I can't remember what it was, but we did
it. We got it through.
Yeah. So it was all good, but just appreciate everything that you've, just your friendship and just kind of, I don't know, corresponding. It's been amazing. But then also to see you get appointed this new role, it's, I always like, you're one of the good guys, like for people like me, it's like,
that's good to know.
You're the type of person we want in Congress. Just like, can we get somebody who just, because you see some of these guys on TV, it's just like, I'm this small town, Oregon. You watch some of these guys on TV and you're just like, who are they representing? It's not me. And that you are somebody who people can be proud of up there.
Everyone, I appreciate that. I think it just goes back to where you come from. And I think there's a lot of times that, my staff will tell me, if you hear me ever speak, and I mean this with love, but I'm a trooper's kid from North Georgia. My dad is a Georgia State Trooper for 31 years. I grew up in a home, and
I have no idea. Okay, he does have a large following on YouTube. Views are lacking a bit, at least on this episode. I haven't checked out his channel.
That was stable. Mom and dad. I lost my mom about 8 years ago. My dad's still with me. We still have breakfast in a week.
It seems like they knew each other way back when. And
where I am,
here they are.
I still want to be Doug. I can have quote big titles and do those things, but that doesn't matter at the end of the day if you lose who you are. And I think in Congress, as a government and everything else, we start beginning to believe there's a persona we have to perform, or there's something expected of us. And what really it is why are you there? What are you doing? And then they also, here's another thing most people don't realize in DC, whether it's in administration, but mostly in Congress, a lot of the guys are bored. Now that may sound funny, but because they don't have purpose. And I think that's one of the things that is very important to me is you find the things in life that matter to you, things that you want to accomplish, and you put your energy toward that. If you're putting your energy toward,
I definitely assume he's got some connections for sure. While we're at it, let me just open the link in the new tab because I haven't checked out his channel at all. I have no idea who this dude is. Oh no. He definitely interviews a ton of people. Let's look at his latest 22 48 7 121. Okay, so we're kind of all over the place. I wonder what his military background is. Ton of views. Okay. All right.
Toward everything, then you get nothing. And so it's, I just try to remember where I come from. What would it feel like to me? And that I've heard you talk about this before. When I used to get off the plane in DC, I'd look over at the Capitol and say, well, is this the day they're going to kick me out? I'm not supposed to be here kind of thing.
I do seeing the VA be more forward.
I'm so glad
people don't know what they don't know.
I did know about
you have a point
and
not
how
gonna
you
lie.
come up. I know about your family.
I'm just
curious and I want to get to all that. What's up?
The previous VA secretary did press conferences with chosen pre-scripted questions from reporting outlets. If that's the option, I think a free form podcast is a lot better, personally.
Like working for probably the most polarizing is it on Earth right now? Is
Pretty
Trump?
close.
Is
Pretty close.
Trump? I mean, he gets people fired up one way or another. So what's it like working with?
Fired up and
He's
fired?
actually great. I mean, and this is the thing. If he was sitting here, y'all would talk for hours. I mean, it's just the way he is. And we were just talking about this as we were coming over at breakfast this morning. It's amazing to me that here's a man who said the same things for 40 plus years. And you can go back. I mean, it's documented. He's the man that they write rap songs about. I mean, this was the kind of thing, I want to be like Trump. This was 25, 30 years ago. And he said the same thing for so many years, but yet the minute he stepped into politics, 12 years ago, the same people who vetted and said this is the greatest guy, always wonderful, all of a sudden turned. And that should tell everybody something.
Agree.
That should tell that there is very much deep buy-in and ideological weight to positions that we sometimes don't even want to think about. And he's come and questioned all that. And so it's interesting. Working for the president, you get a lot of, and I was had to defend him during the impeachment stuff, and so defend the Republican side of that, because I was the ranking member through all that impeachment on the House side, and so we had to go through all the Russiagate and all this stuff, and so I got to know him really well. But he truly wants to do good. And I think that's the thing that I really wish that everybody could have 5 minutes with him to see. He truly cares, in my case, in what I'm doing now, veterans, but he truly cares about the folks who are struggling, folks who are trying to make it in this country. He really wants everybody.
I do want to get off Trump and get more towards the secretary, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it seems like it, but he is, if you don't like him for whatever, you can find reasons to dismiss what he says or to be offended by it. But everything I see is like, he seems like he's trying to make a difference. And it's he doesn't need the job, obviously, but I don't know, probably some people don't need to be in Congress, but they like to, because they want to make some probably great intentions, and then some maybe not so great intentions. That's why it's refreshing to see you in this position too. But yeah, it's like that, your trajectory coming from North Georgia and just, your dad being a trooper. And I think that, what you were raised on and that type of fabric, that's middle, or not middle America, but that's the type of people that made our country as good as it is and why we're so great. And so to come from that to where you're now I think it gives hope to a lot of people.
Well, I from my perspective, I hope it does. I mean, I look at what I've gone through, and I started in political, and my wife and I, we've been married, be 37 years in June. When I first got married, we were going to law school because that was what I was going to do, and that didn't work out. And so
I didn't want to skip any parts, but I'm going to. Let's see if there's time. Okay. Working for Trump, from pastor to law school, Trump's cabinet, how Doug got this secretary, communication, media. Let's start here. I'm be honest with you. I want to hear veteran stuff, not goody.
I am curious.
And I'm not putting the podcast down. I just don't care about whatever it is they're talking about.
So getting this position, what was that like? Did you think you had a chance? I mean, how is that? Because I know you'd worked with Trump before. You mentioned, helped out during the impeachment. So how'd that happen?
It was really interesting because I was going through a time being out of the Congress for a few years. And when the campaign started, I would start going to campaign events, and I would see him, and he and I would see each other. And every time he'd see me, we'd talk for a few minutes. And then a little bit later, he began to be, Doug, what do you want to do? I said, well, Mr. President, right now, just get you reelected. I said, that's, he said, well, I'm going to think about it. I said, Mr. President, you do whatever you want to do. You go right ahead. So, and it began to be, and then as the summer moved into the fall, he said, no, I want you to come with me.
Did you pitch yourself at all?
Not really, no.
You're just kind of just.
It was he would make those comments, and so it was one of those things with, you also don't know, and I'm sure you've been here before. Was he just being nice? Yeah. Just being nice. Oh, Doug, we love you. Oh, come on. And so, and then the campaign one, I saw him 2 nights before the election, or the night before, almost 2 nights before the election, and it was sort of the same thing. And
hilarious, wild. You're not wrong.
So I said, let's just get you done and we'll talk. And then afterwards, he and I communicated, and he said I was happened to be down at in Florida at Mar-a-Lago. We're doing group that I was working with that was having their annual meeting down there. And we began to talk. Dan Scavino is a dear friend who's been with the president for years. And he said, let's get you in. Let's talk about this. And so I remember I was doing an interview one morning. I get this call and
the secretary, what's
this
next?
boss, and he said,
confirmation.
"Oh, what do you want to do there?" I said,
media,
well, "Here's what I was thinking about." And that was the first time I sort of mentioned
suicide rates. Okay, there we go. Let's start here.
I can't imagine being there and being grilled like that, because it feels like, to me, politics, again, this is from the outside in, but they want that soundbite, that little clip, the viral clip. And it's all about that. It's not about really even getting the answer. It's just like, oh, I called him out, or I made him look bad, or I held his feet to the fire, or something like that. And it's like, that's why the opposite of that is discussions like this.
Yes.
Where you're having, a podcast where you're able to, and as everybody knows, that's where Trump really made a mark on this election, is like going to these new media sources, and people could really figure out, oh, what's he like? What does he think? And obviously Kamala chose not to do that. And it's, this is how it's supposed to be. It's how you learn about people.
Right.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I totally thought this podcast was going to be veteran centric, not Trump centric. Not that it's good, not that it's bad. It's just not like, if you have the Department of Veteran Affairs secretary, you should probably talk about VA things. Let's skip again. We'll do this one more time. Suicide rates among veterans. We're going to go there. Okay.
So this has been
insane. I understand why there's not that many views on this now, because this podcast sucks. And I say that, I don't know who Cameron Haynes is. I say that in the most loving way possible. But this episode is like, I would rather eat a soggy bologna sandwich.
Probably the biggest question I wanted to ask you. Everybody talks about the suicide rates among veterans.
Yes.
Everybody. I listened to, you were on Sean, and of course he was very, interested in that also.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there hope? I mean, this has been an issue for a long time. Everybody says, President Trump said, take care of our veterans. Mm-hmm. It's like, are these just words? Can it be done? Can you make this difference you talk about? Because sometimes it feels like it's too big of an issue. Mm-hmm. So what's your plan? It's like, if you did one thing as Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and you address the suicide, which I know you're addressing it, but that would solve a lot of the other problems, because the suicide, like, what's causing the suicide? Well, it's mental health, obviously. It's depression, PTSD, substance abuse. Mm-hmm. So if you're addressing that, to address the suicide, you have to address all that other stuff.
Yep.
And to me, it's like, when I see it, it's like these guys just want somebody to talk to. Mm-hmm. But are there people? Can you do it?
Yeah. that is one of the things that wakes me up every day, wakes me up every night. My background, I've been in the military for, I think, which I really believe has helped me, and I'm the first member of Congress who's been in the VA secretary role since President became a cabinet secretary back in the 80s, early 90s. Mm-hmm. I'm also still in the Air Force, 23 years. I was in the Navy for a few years. And I see this from a total perspective. It's the thing that gets me up at night. I'm going to give you some statistics. You talk about it, even sobering. Since 2008, the number has really not changed at all. 2008.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree to that.
In the last few years, just in the last 4 to 5 years, we've spent $588 million a year in, quote, prevention. Mm-hmm. Okay. Getting resources, that kind of stuff. We spend $2.3 billion with counseling, treatment, drugs, associations, those kind of things, all wrapped up. And the number's not moving.
No idea. I
began to come in and say, why? Instead of just, well, aren't we doing good? Getting this word out. Why is this where it's at? And I think it's been really interesting to me, because at times I feel like I'm the only one that's ever asked the question, are we getting a return on investment, so to mm-hmm. speak? We've got to bring back the idea that you can't just keep spending money and getting no return. The situation, I need help. And that's one of the reasons why, one, I'm so glad to come see you, but others as well. The vest many times conversation to a veteran is another veteran.
Mm-hmm.
It's somebody who's been there, who's walked that path. I'm reading Slattery's book right now where he talked about, he only wanted to talk to the guys from the unit,
Right.
And Sean talks about this. And and for me, who went to Iraq as well, there's some things that I can talk about with those guys. The minute somebody says Balad, I was like, because that's where I was. So I know it. What we've got to look at, though, is are we reaching people at their critical times? Here's some critical times out there. Transition right now is not good. Okay. For whatever reason, we put a lot of money into transitioning from active duty or even out of reserves into the civilian world, and they're not getting resources and help that started in DOD, but now is being sort of transferred to the world, so to speak, and the VA. And
so I'm going to rephrase what he said and then give my 2 cents. He's saying that people who are getting healthcare from DOD, specifically mental health for unaliving prevention, I don't want YouTube to flag the video. The transition is rough and they're not getting it at VA. Okay, I would agree with that, but that also assumes that they are getting healthcare in DOD in the first place. I don't think that's the case for not just the majority, the overwhelming majority of veterans dealing with anything, not just mental health and the unalive route, but anything from a knee pain, back pain, to mental health, all the way up to, that unaliving state. You're assuming that veterans are or service members are receiving healthcare from DOD, active healthcare. I would counter that argument that they're not altogether. Those are my thoughts.
That transition is tough because you go from a very regimented lifestyle. You have everything, especially for active duty. You know what you're going to do. You know where you're going. And especially in the last 25 years, the pace has been much quickened than any time in our history. Normally, we would send you for a year, or except in World War II, you just went either died or won. That's basically
You're there as long as it took.
Yeah, as long as it took. But we've sort of changed that up. Vietnam was a year. We've done others now. Deployment times are different. But we also have a smaller per size military than some of those times. So the repetitiveness of going was harder. So you see that in the last few years. And so getting out all of a sudden, well, what do I do in my life?
Yeah.
And so then they have, and many of them at that point, it's the first time that they've had to deal with stresses in their marriage, stresses with their kids, finances, these kind of things. Those are all things that raise that stress indicator, that PTS indicator. It just raises it up to where it becomes harder to cope with. We've got to do a better job of giving them resources while they're in that last 6 months or so. And if it's us being able to help in that, we've already talked to Pete, the Secretary of Defense, and we're going to have a meeting about that. It's who really needs to own this and how can we own it better? I think it's one issue. The other issue is the 3 to 5 years after that. What we have found, Cameron, this is a concern. Death by suicide among those who serve shorter amounts of time. So a 2, 4, 6 year enlistment time, those shorter enlistment times are exponentially higher risk for death by suicide. Not the 20, 25 year guys. Because I think, in my personal opinion of that is when you come into the military, you go through basic, you go through your training, you're broken down. Okay, you become the soldier, the Marine, the airman, whatever. And then you do that and you're learning to adapt to who you are. And then if you all of a sudden you've had experiences of deployment or you've had issues, and then all of a sudden that ends before you're able to process how to get better, then all of a sudden you're out in the world 3 to 5 years later, and some may be going good, and then all of a sudden it just crashes on you.
Yeah.
So we've got to figure out a plan that's much better in that area. Also, half of those folks that are committing are going through death by suicide are they're not in our system. The VA system doesn't have them. So we've got to figure out how we do that. I've taken a new approach, and the new approach is that VA can't work at all. Okay. We can't do everything, but we can do a lot more. But we've also got to take in nonprofits. We've got to take in some of the VSO work, the Veterans Service Organization, and say, how can we spread out our wings, so to speak, to let the VA help with grants and help with funding so that these nonprofits can reach people that we're not going to reach anyway. But I don't care. As long as they're getting the help they need, then that's what we need to do.
If you're looking for a shortcut, this isn't the book for you.
Also, if we're gonna watch someone else's podcast, I can't skip over their ad. Okay. We'll give them credit where credit's due, but I am gonna answer this as we go.
Undeniable is about doing the work, hammering every day. It's about choosing your suffering, finding a way when there's none, and betting on yourself when no one else will. I didn't write this to inspire you. I wrote it to challenge you, to push you, to wake up that fire that's been buried under comfort and excuses. Most of what's in this book, it's forged through my own trials and from conversations with the outliers who sat across from me in the podcast studio. Men and women who've done the impossible and kept hammering long after most people would have quit. Undeniable is not just my story, but a story about the collective of individuals that have inspired me. These people have shown what's possible when you go all in. Go to CameronHaynes.com to see where you can grab your copy. Be relentless, be undeniable. I've been taking Ketone IQ for the past year and have seen tremendous benefits, including mental clarity, increased focus, and more energy. Anytime I take the shot, I feel smarter. When I have on some really smart people like Andrew Huberman on the podcast, it can be intimidating because actually I'm not that smart. Nobody's ever called me smart. So that's an uphill battle for me. Ketone IQ gives me a little more mental clarity, which I always could use. I also bring Ketone IQ with me on many long runs and races for that matter, because I feel like it does give me a little bit of an edge. I've been lucky enough to spend some time with the people that run Ketone IQ, like Michael Brandt for one. And he's just the type of guy I want to surround myself with, a winner, cares about performance, cares about doing things the right way, and just trying to find ways to get that edge. You know, he's a runner himself. And so we can connect on that, but it's been a great partnership for me. What I will say, you can get Ketone IQ. You can try it yourself using code CAM to save 30% off on your first subscription at ketone.com/CAM today.
I just recently made a little bit of a stir in the headlines in the cabinet room because I was asked by the president just the other day about suicide. He asked about this specific issue.
Yeah.
And so I began talking. I said some of the things we're doing. And I said, Mr. President, I've talked to Bobby Kennedy and I've talked to some others, and we're working to expand the use of psychedelic in this as well. I said, it's not, in my thing, it's not this cure-all, it's not a legalization, but if it helps a veteran or helps anybody for that matter, get to a place where they're open to the counseling, that intensive counseling. And we're seeing some studies right now that are being done, like at Emory University and other places, in which, and even inside the VA, in which we're seeing a one-time treatment of a psychedelic, use of a psychedelic, and then accompanied with intense counseling, take numbers that is a scale of this. And it goes from like 46, which is really, really high, down to 19. And then they stay at the 20, normal levels on how to cope. But for years, we've been afraid to address that. Well, we're not going to be afraid to address that anymore. I'm not one. It's, like I said, this is not a legalization. Let's all go out and get high. But is it a medicinal purpose? Is there something there that can help these guys?
Yeah.
And so we're open to that. So for all of this, as a long answer, but I want everybody to understand, we all have a part here. And if you're in the military, or if you're not in the military, and you know somebody who has been in and they're struggling, don't let it go. Be okay to ask a hard question. Be okay to be offended. I've been a chaplain. I've been on both ends of this. So for me, I've actually had the phone calls and saying, hey, I'm ready to end it. I'm sitting across the table just like this from me and you, and it's saying the same things. And you see the hollowness in their eyes because they've come to the point, if they're actually reaching out, many of them are actually reaching out from a point of, I don't know what else to say.
Right.
And so we've got to be willing to say, are you thinking about hurting yourself? And now they may get mad at you. That's okay.
Yeah.
But we got to be willing to.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I want you to be successful. I want this, but I just know everybody says it's almost like people say, "Oh, support the troops." It's just like, what does that mean? Are you supporting, or are you just saying that? You know what I mean? Because Biden himself said, we need to do more for our veterans, right? Everybody kind of says this, and we know. I just remember like that. There's that picture of Bush on the plane hugging the service member. Do you remember that classic one?
Yep.
So people they'll say the right stuff. They'll say how are our veterans doing? Let's take care of them. But it almost feels like it's just words, and it's like nothing ever happens. And I didn't serve, so I don't know. But when you said, I have got a lot of messages, just like you said, you sat across from somebody, and I had to ask, what should I tell these guys? Because I'm a bow hunter. I don't know if somebody's, going to kill themselves. I don't know what to say. And it's what I was told is like, mostly you just need to buy them time. They're at a low spot, check back in with them in 5 hours or in the morning and just get them, because nobody stays in that low spot forever. You come out of it. But at that low spot is where guys make these decisions that they can't undo. And so it's like, do they just need somebody to talk to? I'm thinking a million different things right now, but my son just got out and they still, you can't rely on anybody from the military to do this. So they check on each other, right?
That's the best doctor.
He'll get calls in the middle of the night and, they'll just talk. So when I was thinking that, I was thinking like, these guys just want somebody to talk to generally, whether they're a low spot or whatever. And then when I think about, I heard these numbers, 400 some thousand employees of the VA and 400 some thousand active. So it's like, there's almost like one employee for each service member. It's like you could be in charge of one guy and just make sure that one person, obviously some are janitors aren't calling people to do this. But point is, it's like, if it's just somebody to talk to, I think that would solve so many, this big suicide per day problem.
Yep.
It's just, who do they talk to?
Well, the best thing is anybody listening to this podcast right now, if they're in it now, 988 hit 1. Okay. There's going to be somebody right there to talk to immediately. Okay.
Every time.
Okay. My opinion is, one, I think the VA has an impossible problem to solve, right? I think mental health in the DOD, like the DOD definitely has a ball in the game, and DOD mental health care sucks. The VA's left to pick up the pieces and they're scrambling and it's impossible to solve. I also think there needs to be a cultural change within VA stuff. I'm done listening to this. Let's go ahead. Psychedelics, not going to listen to. What does support your troops really mean? Not going to listen to. Acknowledging veterans and help for veterans. Leadership matters. We can at least start here. Federal cap standard. Man. This podcast sucks. We're going to give this one more shot, okay? I think the most veteran specific is going to be here.
I used to spend over 12 hours a month on busy work, following up, client questionnaires, all of the things. HoneyBook.
So we talked about a lot of issues here, but like one thing I was curious about, I did read suicide rates, how much they've went up, like since the global war on terror, basically since 9/11, in the last 20 years compared to the 20 years previous. And 4 times higher.
Yeah,
and
some numbers.
It had me thinking, just because I know, with my son being in, all the blasts they are around and the shooting, the explosions and the brain injuries, it seems like brain injuries, the mental health part is a big part of, and how the NFL and even college here, now they're practicing with the big helmets, right? Because they're protecting those kids' brains. You get TBI, your brain's rotting. All these issues we talked about are getting worse and worse by the day. Is because of the different. There was no war before.
I'm only asking if he's a veteran because I can't imagine a veteran having a podcast and having the VA secretary on and not talking about things that veterans care about, and that's kind of the coarse way to put it. I'm gonna look up to see if this dude's a veteran. Okay, if he said he wasn't, I totally missed that. I'm gonna see. Let's just keep playing.
9/11, but with the different fighting tactics, the more explosions, the mortars, different things like that. Some of the weapons that we use that cause a lot of damage. And these guys are subjected to that. So they're having more brain injuries. Are we looking at different? In Vietnam, there wasn't stuff like that. So it's probably less brain injury than now because of implementing different weapons. Yeah. Are we looking at protecting the guys in the brains that are subjected to that?
Yeah, I think this is where DOD and VA are I call us twins, but we're fraternal twins. We do different things in the sense of DOD
he's not.
It has had its own issues over the years. I mean, if you look at early on in the GWAT, which I call the GWAT generation, which I include Desert Storm in that as well, but GWAT in particular, 2001 forward. I can remember, if you remember back in the early 2000s, the big issue was we had MRAPs, we had the Humvees that were not armored. It was just, we didn't go into an asymmetrical warfare with asymmetrical equipment in a sense to prevent some of this. Vietnam, probably the big difference probably in the Vietnam era and this generation is a lot of the folks who received injuries in Vietnam or similar injury in the current time, the current ones are living. Many in the Vietnam era were dying because of just the difference in medical treatments and everything else. So I think DOD has got a lot to look at as they look forward on how they deal in training, how they deal with the mental aspect of an asymmetrical warfare. People that you go into a place and the warfighter that you're against looks like everybody else in the city, so to speak. And that plays on you. And I've read many books and talked to many of our guys who went out, and it plays on you. I think the pace of our deployments, especially with using smaller, more specialized forces, our special forces across the spectrum, from our Rangers to Green Berets to everybody else, Marine Task Force, SEALs, everybody, there's a different level there that of going and coming. You also have it with the general population that came out of this.
What do you say? Does that help or hurt?
It hurts. I think it hurts because you don't have. Think about it. Here's probably a good way. Maybe it puts it in perspective for people watching this who may not have served it, but they're a hunter. Your September, I watch you all the time, and your September, October, you lose weight, you're tired. By October 15th, you're spent.
Yep.
Now think about you get 30 days, and I'll compress it into your term. 30 days, and I'm gonna put you out there and do it again.
Right.
And then 30 days after, I'm gonna put you out there and do it. We're doing 90 days or 6 months, and then be home 6 months, and then do it again.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize that actual involvement in Afghanistan or Iraq, actual bodies in there, was less than 2% of our population. Less than
2% of our
entire population. We only about 1 million or 2 million actually were there.
Right.
So when you think about that term, you're using, everybody talks about it, but it was really a smaller group of people. So not to get sidetracked, but that is an issue of how, with what they were seeing, with the explosions, with the other amputees, a lot of other things, that mental aspect.
More opportunity.
More opportunity. Yeah. And so I think, war is going to be war. Yeah. And so this is where DOD and us have to work together on that transitioning piece that I talked about earlier. Giving a warm handoff is probably a one way to put this. We know that some are coming out with some issues that we may need to watch that may not be manifest because right now the adrenaline's pumping. They're in the military. They're in there. But then when they start getting out, then how do we do that? That's where in fact, Secretary and Pete and I are going to be meeting within the next week or so. And that's one of the issues that we're going to talk about is how do we do this and how do we look at the differences? Vietnam veterans changed the VA in the 70s. They came home and found a VA that basically was
the Assist Act
not functioning in any form that helped them. They had they had mental health crisis, they had physical crisis, the prosthetics, everything just wasn't working. That's why we have vet centers across this country that are a part of us. But it also is why
I know, right?
The VA began to change how it does our hospital.
Okay, I am going to end this. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be very veteran specific. It's not. There were a few good nuggets in here, like the TBI thing was good. I love his explanation of the GWAT generation. Basically, just getting hoed out would be the Barney way to say it. Most of it, and if you watch the stream at the beginning, and I'm going to go ahead and link this video in the chat, was very, 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 very not veteran heavy at all. Not even a mention. But there it is. I put it in the chat. That's it, dude. This was a bust. Sorry for wasting your time here. Yeah. I thought this video was going to suffice for today, but I guess it's not because it sucked. So I'll have to make another one. Yeah. Thank you very much.